Welcome back, What's Not Sports fans. We're here, episode 64 of the Pulse Check. I am your host, Will O'Connor. Rugby League. It is back. I'm actually not in my What's Not Sports uniform. I'm repping the hat this week. But we honestly might be 20, maybe 30 episodes where I have worn a What's Not Sports shirt every single time. This time, we're wearing Raiders merch because we just finished round one of the NRL. The Raiders got the win. Every round the Raiders win, I'll be wearing the merch, and that'll be why. What's Not Sports merch still on the head. Guys, DM me if you want any more merch. It's a little promo before we get G'd up for the podcast. We're just purely NRL today. Nothing else. We're diving into round one. We're then looking at round two. But to say the least, the NRL teams, the real teams, did real things on the weekend. And what I mean is they got up and they performed for the rest of round one. And they absolutely put some teams to the sword. And it looks like that there is a lot of work to be done by quite a few teams. But there is also a lot of promising things from quite a few teams. And some things I don't even know what to take away from. But welcome back. Let's dive in. Let's see who I had tipped, or who played each other, who I had tipped. Again, I want to dive into the Raiders game. We'll touch on that in a second. But let's do it. For the rest of round one, so we had the start of round one in Vegas, and that was 2 weeks ago now. And then over the weekend, we had the rest of round one. We had the Storm versus Eels, who I had the Storm picked. We had the Warriors versus the Roosters. I had the Roosters picked. The Broncos versus Panthers. I had the Panthers picked. The Sharks versus Titans. I did tip the Titans on this one. Manly versus the Raiders. You know I'm backing my boys up the milk. And to finish off, we have the Dolphins versus South Sydney Rabbitohs, and I have the Dolphins picked. Let's dissect each game a little bit and talk about a few key players and some performances. Let's go Storm versus Eels. So I had the Storm picked. They won over the Eels, and it was an absolute thrashing. I think the final score happened to be something along the lines of 52-4. Parramatta got absolutely pumped. They had a sin bin in the first 30 seconds. Jermaine Hopgood, I actually thought he got off very unlucky with the sin bin. The fact that it was more of falling into the shoulder than direct contact with the head. I'm not a fan of that sin bin, but I understand what they're cracking down on. They just need to stay consistent if that's what the NRL and the bunker, the rest are looking at. If that's what the punishment is going to be for a hit like that, they need to keep it consistent for the whole season. Parramatta looked incredible for the first 5 minutes. They scored the first try. It was 4-0. But that was it for them. The Storm then went and put on an absolute clinic. Standout for me, Sua Fa'alogo, playing fullback, stepping up since the retirement of Ryan Pappenhausen. He did not look out of place whatsoever. He was great, scored a double from memory, and I'm excited to see what more he's got in the role of fullback. Let's talk Harry Grant. That was a 9 out of 10 performance, maybe even a 10 out of 10. He is, well, we already knew this, the best hooker in the game. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. There's not many that can rival him as 80-minute hookers. He did pick up a little bit of what looked like a hamstring injury. I think it was just tightness, they were saying. So nothing severe for him. It was an incredible performance. He scored a double as well. And yeah, just an incredible performance. I was very disappointed in Parramatta because I thought they were going to be much, much stronger. I don't know what happens to Parramatta now. It's only round one, and yes, the Storm haven't lost a round one game in like 20-something years. But losing to the Storm by 50, getting put on 52 points, is a concern for Parramatta. It would be a concern for every team, but Parramatta, who had a lot of hope this season, I suppose, they will be feeling very disappointed with that. They go back to the drawing boards. They've could potentially have a tough round two. They're playing the Broncos in Suncorp. It'll be interesting to see what happens. The Warriors-Roosters game over in New Zealand, and the Warriors cooked the Roosters. It was roast chicken for dinner. Leka Halasima, just insane as always. I think the pressure now falls onto Daly Cherry-Evans with that performance. They've got a big game coming up next week against the Rabbitohs. That's going to be huge. It always is. That Sydney clash, it is always insane. There could be 12 sin bins. I'm going to be honest, especially with the way that the rulings on high contact is going at the moment. There could be potentially 12 sin bins, because we have seen that game where it has had multiple sin bins at once on both teams. It will be wild. AJ, he's crawling up closer and closer to that record. It's going to be a pretty interesting game. DCE and really needs to pick up his game. Is it enough for next week? Who knows? But if he doesn't gel, it's about gelling. And gelling with Walker is the most important thing for DCE right now, and the most important thing for the Roosters. That's my opinion. There wasn't much of that against the Warriors, and the Warriors took advantage of that. The Warriors took advantage of everything that the Roosters were doing, put on a clinic, and yes, it's hard to play the Warriors in New Zealand, but I thought the Roosters would be up for the challenge, but obviously not. So I got that tip wrong. That was devastating. Broncos versus Panthers. I had Panthers tipped. I thought this was going to be a very, very close game. I thought this would be the game of the round. I couldn't have been more wrong. Well, I thought the Sharks-Titans game was going to be game of the round, something like that. That's what I said last week. But the Broncos-Panthers game I thought was going to be very good, especially the Broncos knocking out the Panthers in a prelim. I don't think the Broncos actually showed up to Suncorp. 26-0. That was the score. Penrith absolutely destroyed them. Cleary was just too good. The whole Panthers team was just too good. Clearly, did the Broncos even show up? Where was Reece Walsh? Payne Haas was kind of there, but where was the rest of the team? I'm confused on a few things with how the starting lineup works. Hunt should be playing hooker, in my opinion. Do the Broncos look at doing what helped them go on a generational run in the fact of Billy Walters gets through his injury? Do we have a 6 and 7 pairing of Ben Hunt and Billy Walters again? I know Adam Reynolds was injured and then came back. I know there's a few things wrong with that, but that worked really well. It worked really well for the Broncos. I don't know what to say about Broncos fans. I was right that the Panthers won. I didn't think they would win like that. I did not think they were going to win the way they did and absolutely punish the Broncos in Suncorp, which is becoming the Queensland Fortress, which is the Broncos Fortress. The Broncos have built such a fan base now. They're so popular in the comp. it would have been deafening. But the fact that they put 26 unanswered points on the Broncos, I think it's 26. I hope it is because I've been saying 26. Yeah, 26-0. How does that happen at your home ground? Yeah, I just thought that was insane. Sharks versus Titans. I couldn't have been more wrong about this game. I had the Titans tipped. Um, Josh and I goes back to the drawing board. I I know the fact that not having Jaden Campbell and AJ Brinson paired together with Jaden's injury would have been a struggle, but I actually thought Lockie Ilias played pretty well. I don't think he was a reason of detriment for the Titans, but I didn't think the Sharks would pummel them. 50-10, maybe, was the score, I'm pretty sure. That is punishing. That is absolutely punishing by the Sharks. Trindle's on fire. The Titans were just a lost cause. Let's see if they regather themselves for round 2. Manly versus Raiders. Tipped the Raiders, got it right. 28-29 on Brookie Oval. Oh, we'll break this down more in a second. But let me just say, it was poetry and absolute cinema. If you get those references, you know, but it was absolute cinema, and it was literally poetic. I don't know how else to describe it. I'll go into depth on what I mean about that, and you'll see why I'm saying that. It couldn't have been better. Well, it could have. The fact that, as I said, I'll go into this a little bit later, but for the Raiders not to touch the ball for over 11 minutes. So they're defending for the first 11 minutes of the game and did not get the ball once. And the fact that Manly put 14 points on them, and the Raiders then put 28 unanswered points back onto Manly, and then Manly to come back to bring it to 28 all and then to go into Golden Point. That's all just crazy in itself. We'll break that down as well. But insane game. I honestly didn't think the Manly Raiders would be the match of the round. I thought it would be a good lineup with Jamal playing halfback for Manly, the starting of Sanders. But it was good. We'll talk about it in a second. And then Dolphins, Rabbitohs. Had the Dolphins picked. Rabbitohs sufficed 40-30. High scoring game. Like, we saw a lot of high scoring games that was one-sided. For example, the Storm, 52-4 against the Eels. The Wild's Roosters game was a pretty high scoring game. There would have been over 60 points scored in that. Something around that. The Broncos Panthers, 26-0. That is a 26 points scored by one team is quite a lot. The Raiders, Sharks Titans game, it was 50-10. That's 60 points scored in a game and 50 of them to one side. And then 28-29 for the Raiders Manly game. That's nearly 60 points scored there. That's high points. And then the Dolphins Rabbitohs, 40-30. That's 70 points in a game. Just think about how every game of the second half of round 1, not quite Vegas, but even a little bit in Vegas, but the rest of round 1 all had very, very high scoring totals, which I don't think a lot of people expected, whether it was close or not. The Rabbitohs look dangerous, absolutely. Injury-free, they are 100% top 8, potentially top 4 contenders. I saw an interesting stat that this weekend was the first time that Cody Walker, Cam Murray, Latrell Mitchell, and Jack Whiten, all 4 of them were in a game together since some round in 2024. That's just a lot of time away and shows that they've been injury riddled. That I worked out the average age of that, and the average age of that group was like 31 when I did the math. Something around those terms. Well, age, an average of 31 I think Latrell and Cam Murray are 28, Jack White and 32, and Cody Walker 36. I think that's right. Let me fact check that. Yeah, 36. You go back 2 years ago, they're probably all quite a bit more threatening, a bit younger. Cody Walker being 34, Jack White only just being 30, and then you got a 26-year-old Cam Murray, a 26-year-old Latrell. Has their game matured? Have they been struggling because they haven't had that much game time together? But it looks really good for the Bunnies if they can stay injury-free this season, and especially next season when Keon, not anymore, but having Keon go, but Payne Haas coming next season. If they have a good season this year and Payne Haas stays on the form he is, next season could be even more deadly for the Bunnies. But on that, I thought it was a pretty good performance from both the Dolphins and Bunnies. South are just so much more threatening, I think. And AJ is also coming close to that record. One more try to equalise, I think it is. And then one to overtake the record. I'll double check that. But it will be wild scenes if it happens next weekend. Let's dive into the Raiders-Manly game because I love the Raiders so much. Got to do them justice. And, you know, if we do lose, you won't get this segment. And it is the Raiders only section. It's, what do I call it? The bottom of the carton. I think that's what I called it last week. The bottom of the milk carton. Let's run it. So the Raiders-Manly game was obviously clearly the game of the round for multiple reasons. As I said earlier, the Raiders didn't touch the ball for the first 11 minutes of the game. That is so physically demanding to be on the defense for the first quarter of a half. For 11 whole minutes of not getting the ball and just defending. The fact that it was only 14-0, I reckon that is a testament to the Raiders holding out. The halftime score was 14-6 after Noel Martin scored a try. Absolute weapon. After halftime, Noel Martin comes in, scores his second try of the night. So, great performance from Noel Martin, one of the best on the field. He brought the game to a 14-12, personally, with Ethan Sanders converting. And then Xavier Savage thought he would have a crack. He scored a double. He was so close to scoring 2 more tries. He could have scored 4 tries, which would have been absolute scenes if he did that. But nonetheless, he had a great performance. I thought it was really good. Last season, we saw a lot of... We saw him have strength in his attack, his defense a little bit weaker. But the thing I noticed the most, and I might just be the first round, need more to see, but last season, Xavier Savage, say if he got the ball off the 5th tackle by the opposition and they kicked it and Xavier Savage got the ball, he would start to run, make some good meters. But then all of a sudden, he would allow them to drive him back. I didn't see as much as that as last season. And to be honest, he was pushing forward and making post-contact meters with people on him. I thought that was impressive and a step up to his strength game. It was very interesting to see that. Let's see how he holds up in other games if he continues to do that. So yeah, we bring the game up to 24-14 after Savage's doubles, and then Ethan Sanders scores a try. I thought that was poetry at its finest when it happened. The new half of the Raiders putting the sword to the old half of the Raiders who left for Manly. The tides then turned really quickly in the last 7 minutes of the game. Last 6 minutes, something around that, 6-7 minutes. Manly scored. They scored a good try. And I'm going, that's all right. It was probably overdue. The Raiders getting a bit fatigued after... or not having the ball, for defending purely for 11 minutes in the first half, the first bit of the first half. and then having to come back from a 14-0 deficit to then put 28 unanswered points on. So then Manly is down by a 14-point deficit. I thought that was really impressive by the Raiders, but then obviously started fatiguing. But when I started to get scared is when it was off the kickoff. Manly then goes and scores another try. And not only did they score a try, it was Jamal Fogarty who scored the try. And I'm going, no. I couldn't sit down on the couch. I was pacing around the room. I'm going, so it looked like Ethan Sanders had just sealed the deal for the Raiders to win that game. And now Jamal's put him, and it's 26-28 after he's just scored a try. Oh my, what's going to happen here? And then we kick off. Manly marches up the field a little bit, like a couple sets. And then he goes for a 2-point field goal and misses. I'm going, oh, thank God. The Raiders are good here. We'll march down. We'll wind the clock down. Plenty of time. No. The boys left the line early, and Manly get a penalty in front of the goals. They take the 2, and then Jamal converts that. And Jamal, who left the Raiders, and Ethan Sanders, we thought he sealed the deal for the Raiders, going, yeah, the new half is here, he's taking it. And then Jamal then scored a try of his own and then converted a penalty goal to then bring the game to golden point. Why did it have to be Jamal? That's what I'm going. I'm walking around the room going, why did it have to be Jamal? What's going on? This script is broken. The Raiders can't get a break. What is going on? And I'm freaking. Anyway, bring us to golden point. Hudson Young is at the coin flip instead of Tarpanay. It's all right. We win it, and we go, we want to kick off. We don't want to receive. We want to kick off. So we kick off. Manly march the field a little bit. They do a set. Weren't in the right position for a field goal, so they just kick it like normal. Blah, blah, blah. The Raiders get the ball. Then the Raiders get the ball, and they charge up the field. 5th tackle. Cheeky little pass out of dummy half to our halfback. Our new halfback. The one who's had to step up because Jamal left a season early. Ethan Sanders then just so relaxed. Takes a couple steps and just drop kicks it. It wasn't even set up. And this is what I think is insane, but I'll talk about this in a second. But Sanders gets the ball, he easily kicks it with his left foot, and it just was magnificent. I heard someone say this, it's like the left-handed bowlers in cricket. It just seems so more natural. Like, it shouldn't look natural, but it does. And it looks so much more comfortable, and they're so much more relaxed about it. It was so poetic, the fact that we thought Ethan Sanders had sealed the deal in the second half for the Raiders, and we thought we won. But no, Manly comes back, and then Jamal scores a try, and then converts a penalty to bring it to golden point, and then it was Ethan Sanders who went, nah, we're winning this. The script ain't Manly winning. The Raiders have got this. I'm the guy. And then he just simply slots a field goal, just like a hero. And he is my hero now. That is for sure. And he had an exceptional, like an absolutely fantastic first game. Well, second game for the Raiders. But just as our guy, I'm going now. I looked at him and he was so relaxed and so calm. I'm going, he could do that every week if he wanted to. Now, on the points of the field goal, we were not set up to make it look like a field goal. And Manly did not put kick pressure on, and they did not rush up on Sanders. And I think that's because Sanders didn't go deep. He was already about 36 metres. He kicked it from 36 metres out. So that's already a pretty hefty distance. But he was... dummy half was here, like the ruck was here, and Sanders wasn't deep. He was like pretty close to being flat almost, maybe only a metre or two back. And I think because of that, they thought they were going, kick in the corner. So no kick pressure on him. But there was just no one in front of him. He took 3 steps and then slotted a field goal. There was so much aura, and he did it so nonchalantly. It was awesome. And yeah, it was incredible. I really want to point out that the Raiders have the youngest halves pairing in the comp. I believe the average age is 21 and a half, because I think Ethan Strange is 21 and Ethan Sanders is 22. The ES squared combo could go on a generational run for the next 15 years. You heard it here first on the What's Not Sports podcast. We heard that Ethan Sanders can be a player for the next a half for the next 10 years in the NRL. But what about Ethan Strange? He's the next 5'8" for New South Wales. These two could go on a generational run for the next 15 years if they wanted to. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So let's keep them signed to the Raiders for the rest of their lives. But that's all I've got for round one. Good recap. We're nearly half an hour into the pod and we haven't even touched on round two. So let's do that. Let's run through it. Won't be here too long for you guys. But yeah, here we go. Round two is here. It's the first full round of the season happening in the all 1 week. Hey, I'm excited for it. We've got a game on Thursday. Back to normality. 2 games on Friday, 3 on Saturday, and 2 on Sunday. What else could you ask for? I don't know. But it's better than Lego. It is better than Lego. We got the Broncos versus Parramatta in Brisbane. The Warriors versus Canberra in New Zealand. It's a big one. Roosters versus Bunnies. Allianz, that's going to be a huge clash. It will be, no matter what, that'll be the game of the round as my prediction. Tigers versus Cowboys. Tigers coming off the bye. Dragons versus Storm. Penrith versus Sharks. Manly versus the Knights. And Dolphins versus Titans. And while I'm thinking of it, I think it's the Doggies that have the bye, because I can't see them on my list. Yeah. Broncos versus Parramatta. I'm backing the Broncos here. It's played at Suncorp again. Parramatta, yes, both teams got punished by really good teams. The Broncos only got punished by half the amount of points that Parramatta did. The Broncos are the 2025 premiers. They haven't won a game in 2025. I know it's only one game, but they also didn't, 2026, I mean, they also didn't win the World Cup Challenge. But being the premiers, they will not want to win, not want to lose 2 in a row at their home ground. So I'm picking the Broncos here. Friday night, 5 o'clock, we got the Warriors versus Canberra Raiders. 5 o'clock Queensland time. It's going to be a tough game for the Raiders to go over to New Zealand and beat them. It's a fortress over there. Go Media Stadium, if you haven't heard of it. It's deadly. But we bleed green. The Milk have got it sorted. Raiders 30 plus. Maybe not 30 plus, but it'll be a good game. Be close. But the Raiders will prevail. If you don't think so, don't listen to my podcast. Then we got Roosters versus Rabbitohs. Allianz Stadium. Now, this is a clash that is not for the light-hearted. I'm concerned about the Roosters after losing like that to the Warriors. The Bunnies are threatening not being injured. That is one thing that I know for sure. The Roosters are the favourites, but I have tipped the Bunnies. I've got the Bunnies picked. If DCE can absolutely put on a clinic, like we know he can do sometimes. But the Bunnies, they are just looking too good. So I'm going to tip them. Sorry, Ali Day. Tigers versus Cowboys. The Tigers should be feeling strong after a bye. In saying that, the Cowboys have also had the week off because they were travelling back from Vegas. But they've had to travel back from Vegas, which can be a bit cruel on the body, especially with jet lag. Will that play into it? I don't know, but I'm going to back the Tigers here. Benji could have something going on here. And Malakasima, I've got for a double. Just putting it out there in the universe. The young guy on the wing, he's in my fantasy team. Let's see if he can perform for us. Dragons versus Storm. There is no way in a million years that the Dragons beat the Storm in this game. I'm expecting 30 plus. Storm, Penrith versus Sharks. Penrith. They will prevail over the Sharkies. As I said it the other episode, Penrith have had barely any changes this season. Over the last few seasons, they have had huge changes, like no Luai, going to the Tigers, Critter going to the Doggies, just a few things like that happening. Fisher Harris going over to the Wars. That's tough on them, but they've now had a full season, and now they're into a season where not a lot of things are very unchanged for the Panthers. They're just too strong, so they'll be putting the Sharks to bed. Manly versus Knights. I'm picking the Knights here as the underdogs. Kalen Ponga looked so threatening in that round 1 in Vegas, and when he's on fire, the whole team gets on fire. Trey Mooney, I keep talking on him. I wish he was still at the Raiders. I know he did what he had to do over at the Knights. Hopefully he'll come back to the Raiders one day. He's going to be threatening in that middle. He's just too good. He is. He's such a good forward, so solid. He'll be one of the best in the game in a very, very, very soon. Once he gets more game time in him, grab him the best. He is a scary, scary man when he wants to be, and I think he will put a lot of pressure on Manly. So I'm going to tip the Knights here, and to finish off, we've got Dolphins versus Titans, a Queensland matchup this weekend. I don't know if it's at Redcliffe or if it is at Suncorp. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Just to see how fired up this could get. It's at Suncorp, so pretty neutral. Probably an hour and a, maybe not an hour and a half from Redcliffe, 45-minute drive, but pretty close to the Gold Coast. I just don't know what to expect. Dolphins could go out and put 40 points on the Titans, or we could see the Titans just link up and make it a very close game, but I will back the Dolphins here. I need to go and watch some more highlights of the Dolphins and Rabbitohs game, but I'm picking the Dolphins here. So those are my tips for round 2. Let me know what your tips are, what you think, and that's that from the pod. I think I've done pretty well. Let me know what you think. I'm going to try and put something up on socials, so stay tuned for that. I think I might have a few things in the works. I'm not sure. I'm actually not sure what I'm doing right now with the pod. I love doing it. I'm trying to get some more guests. I'm going to continue to upgrade the studio. It's in all sorts at the moment, to say the least. I'm going to try and make it a bit more friendly for us all. And yeah, that's the aim of the game. Maybe put some, I feel like a jersey could go here. I feel like a jersey or something cool. Maybe a plant here, or maybe a paddle here, or a signed Rashi or something cool. We can get something framed and put up there. I don't know. But maybe a desk, and maybe we get some stubby holders for What's Not Sports. Who knows? But I will say, What's Not Sports hats are pretty awesome. So hit me up and I might have one. Anyway, that's episode 64 of Pulse Check. We are smashing through these episodes. I just love talking footy, and it's me talking to myself, honestly. So if anyone wants to come chat footy on the pod, hit me up and we can work something out. But that's me done for What's Not Sport this week. next week we might have 2 episodes, I reckon. We're gonna have our NRL on Wednesday, and then I'll drop a pod Friday morning, and that will be my Aussies preview pod. That'll be a big one. That'll be interesting. Let's see what happens for Aussies. I'm excited. But no clubbies this week. We're not talking clubbies. We just talked NRL. So, yeah. And up the milk as always. So, thanks for tuning in, guys. And I'll catch you later.